the candidates are engaged doing other things, and the community turnout is, there's only one community member here. We're going to postpone just for 5 minutes, and at 10 after, we'll see if anyone shows up as we have done in the past, and then we'll just call the meeting council if things don't change. So that's where we're at right now, folks. Thank you. Of course, I know there's other community members online, but yes, two candidates, and no one else has an opportunity. Only other candidates. Oh, here's another candidate. They're coming. Victor. Okay. So we'll commence the all candidates meeting. This is for election of 5 councillors on December 8th. We have a total of 8 candidates, only 3 of which are here. Others are busy doing other things. A very low turnout in the community. Must be a lot of other things happening, obviously. So this is a required component of the election process. It's a means of assuring that voters have the opportunity to ask questions and hear each candidate's response to help them make an informed choice on their ballot. And we will start with an opening statement by each candidate, followed by a question and answer period. There will be questions from off-reserve voters online as well as the community that are present. Everyone has to identify themselves when they ask a question, who they are. And we usually have a time limit of 3 minutes. I don't think that's going to be an issue tonight. Okay, we'll start with opening statements, and we'll just move from this end. Yes? Okay, would you come up and do that, please? And I'll just go to my desk.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I just wondering if we could take a moment out just to recognize the people that lost loved ones in the last little bit here. I think that's why we've got a low turnout and lots of people are missing. So I think we should take a moment just to recognize that. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Okay, Dixon, you'll make the opening statement, your opening statement.
Good evening. My name's Dixon Taylor. I'm getting my name on the ballot for re-election. It doesn't seem like 3 years have gone past, but it's been a busy 3 years. And we've done a lot of different things, and some we've been successful with, others are still in stages of progress. I guess the best place for me to start would be what I've been involved in the past 3 years. I've been given the finance portfolio and the education portfolio, and halfway through the mandate, I was put on the I've forgotten the last one I wanted to talk about. The finance portfolio is important, mainly because we don't really have an idea of what's happening, and we do need more transparency. But I find that that's a difficult issue to deal with. How do we become transparent without making it difficult by saying things that we probably shouldn't be saying? Our education program has been difficult, is the best way that I can say it. We've got we've had no success in retaining, especially principals and also teachers. And it's not from the lack of trying, but we just really haven't had the opportunity to build a program for the long term. It always seems to be short term. we've spent a lot of time on businesses, Quatera, Orca Sand and Gravel, Quaggy's Power, Adelaide, Dunman's, Nunley's Excavating. We've had a measured success. After about 2 years, we're slowly getting to the point where we might be able to divest ourselves from the Quatera responsibilities. It's not that it was a bad idea, but it was an idea that was too early, too soon, and we don't have deep enough pockets to be able to work through all of the difficulties that we had in trying to run a business for raising farmed fish. I have my own personal problems with that, and that is Atlantic salmon, as they call it, is not a salmon. You know, that's the name that they give it out in Atlantic Canada. But the closest I can describe it is that it's like our steelhead, the Pacific Coast steelhead. And that's the only fish that we have that spawns 3, 4, 5 times. And they get to be fairly big. Quaggy's Power, again, a good idea. But it's going to take a while before we can really benefit in any measure out of Quaggy's Power. It's the Kokish River is, we all know that it dries up and it's not running for about 2 months every summer. Last year we had a really good snowpack, but still it dried up at its regular time. We've been working with the total council to try to see what we needed to do to try and get the businesses separated from council. As it is, we're too close to the businesses. We've made the businesses a way of personalizing the kind of effort that we make. Getting back to Quaggy's Power, we have a 40-year agreement, which is really a 40-year mortgage. We can't pay off Quaggy's Power until after we've started paying down the principal in 40 years. It's a tough call. We get a little bit of money each year. We might be getting up to $500,000 a year for the next 3 years, and then that should move up to about $1 million, $1.5 million. But at some point, we're going to have to pay off this mortgage for 40 years, and it's not an easy thing to consider, because we need to have the cash to be able to pay it off, and it's not going to work. For me personally, I work better one-on-one or with small groups. I like working in committees. I've served the hiring committee, the finance committee, and also done some evaluations. And it's not it's where I'm most comfortable rather than being in a larger community setting. The last point that I would like to make is that I'm concerned that we keep moving on our title and rights. We haven't really officially got out of the treaty process. We're still registered, but we're also doing work with our legal team to start to decide how we're going to deal with our title and rights. This is really important for me for two things. I think that we really need to be concerned about our water, and we need to be concerned about our fish. We don't have the time for making more mistakes or possibly getting into a point where we don't see fish that we really like to see and that we want to see, which is sockeye. This year is the first year that I've ever had no sockeye. 2 is what I got. I'm hoping to get a little bit more from my kid brother. If I go by Nanaimo, I might get 3 or 4 more. But I've never had a time when I haven't had any sockeye. With that, I'd just like to say that although there's been difficult times, I have enjoyed the time that I've been on council. I don't say a whole bunch at the council table. I usually like to listen I try my best to really listen to what's being said. When it's time to make a decision, I like being there to, let my decision be known. And so, on December 8th, Lord willing, I will have another term on council. So I thank you very much.
I'm gonna just go right down the table, Robbie.
Hello, Kisla. I'm Robert Mung. I'll be running again for council for the Numpties band. And just like Dixon said, there's really a lot going on right now. And it's busy times. When the last chief was here, Deb Henny, we had meetings after meetings, and I knew the elected chief said, oh, we're going to slow down. We're going to have less meetings. That hasn't happened. It seems like we're having more meetings and more meetings still. But like Dixon was saying, we do still need a lot more transparency and communication with the members. And a lot of the stuff that happens at the table doesn't seem to get to the members. A lot of them don't even know about the own source revenue that we have and how it's going to be spent. They ask me, and I said, well, we're going to have to go through the books to see what it was spent on. I don't even know what it's spent on, really. We haven't seen how much was spent. And that's going to be brought up at the AGM, hopefully, about all our own source revenue we have, because I know we just got a big chunk from Orca Sand and Gravel, $800,000 that the members need to decide how we're going to spend that. And also from Froggates Power, there's a couple installments of $250,000 not sure how many installments, 2 or 3 over the last year and a half. So, and from the forestry fund, we've gotten money from there too. So we have a lot of own source revenue there that the members need to decide how we're going to spend that. And there was an expense plan last AGM, but it all the action plan hasn't been done yet from the plan from the AGM. We're still working on it. Like the title and rights for we're having a lawyer get all our stuff ready if we plan to go to court or if we plan to negotiate. So we have a lawyer hired to do that, and one of our members hired to do the research as well. So we're still in transition mode for that part. And a lot of the other stuff too needs to be identified for the AGM, what was done in the action plan, and we really, really need to be transparent on that to the members about what we've done and what we haven't done. And like I said, a lot's happening, and Dixon touched on a lot of our businesses. We're in a transition mode of developing a holding company or an ECDEV company where we're going to lump all the businesses aside away from chief and council. But we're still going to have that communication link so we know what's going on. And they'll be running the businesses. Chief and council won't be running the businesses anymore. And they won't have their hands on with the businesses. Like everybody says, the businesses and politics don't mix. So that's what we're doing. And a lot of that is in transition right now. We're on the hiring mode for a CEO and trying to hire board of directors for the holding company as well, so we can get a hold of our companies and have it run a lot more smoother. Because right now with chief and council, it's just a lot more work for us, trying to look after all the businesses that Dixon mentioned, and then trying to do the day-to-day business on the reserve is horrendous. And there's one thing I really like what's happening, and I think more needs to be done as chief and council. We're political people, and there wasn't anything hardly political done in the past. Right now, we're doing our due diligence and being political. We're setting up meetings with government. We're setting up meetings with ministers. We're inviting the ministers and other politicians to our reserve to actually meet with them and demand things. And that's what I've been told. I've been to many, many meetings, and everybody says, don't ask anymore. Tell the government what you want. Tell them what you need. Demand that we get a portion of this money from forestry, from water, from fisheries, you name it. So we have to demand and not go begging anymore. This is our territory. The Nimcus Valley is one of the richest tree farm licenses in North America. And the billions of dollars, the last report I read, $6 billion taken out of our territory. What did the Nimcus band get? Hardly anything. So I think we need to work more on forestry and to get our, not a piece, not a handout again, but partnership in forestry, so we can work on getting everybody involved in forestry, not just a few jobs here and there. So we really, really need to push on that. I believe being partnered with us in Forest Product, or be like Haida Gwaii, where they own 50% of the forest and they're co-managers of the other 50% of their whole territory. That's a dream, so we can make sure that our members are employed, our members are the bosses, our members are the CEOs, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of big dreams there. And the thing is that we have to keep pushing government for that. We cannot let them get away with it. Because after the Chicoutimi case, we know we own that land now. We know it's ours. So we need to demand now what's going on. And we had a big meeting the other day, and it was identified in our council meeting. We need a strategic plan. We don't have one. We need a strategic plan, how we're going to do this, how we're going to do that, who's going to do it, when is it going to be done, and all that stuff. It's been on the table for years, but it's never been completed. We need to get down and complete that strategic plan and get it done and make sure everybody's got their plan. The health's got their plan, the admin's got their plan, fisheries got their plan, And then chief of council would be a lot more easier to run the organization when everybody knows what's going on and what they're doing. And that was a big issue in our last council meeting, that we need a strategic plan for the whole, not just the reserve, but the whole valley as well too, forestry and stuff. And I'm not sure who was all at the meeting, but it was a very interesting meeting too. We also are starting a land code zoning on the Nimkins Reserve, and that's up to the members when we meet with them again, how they want zoning, commercial zoning, business zoning, or just for houses or whatever. But that's one of the plans that the members have to develop after we meet with them and have that plan come forward as well too. We definitely need it because there's business, people want to do businesses all over the place, but it's all scattered. It's not a central zoning. And one of the biggest issues I've been dealing this year with another councillor is that we need to get a handle on our water rights in the Nimkins Valley. The water is going to become worth more than gold later on down the road. So we have to get involved in all of the leases of water in the Nimkins Valley, the groundwater in our valley, and protect all our 5 major lakes for all the sockeye that hopefully comes back one of these days. So that's another big issue that we're working on as well. And another big issue, and everybody should be aware of this, is that we're totally against fish farms and get them out. And we're still in the planning stages. I'm not sure if you guys read what happened in the last court case that happened down in Vancouver, but they were told to leave Midsummer Island. But that's not the end of it. There's still lots going on with that. Planning has to be done. We still have to go ahead with our plans about getting these fish farms out and make sure they don't renew their licenses, because their licenses are up in June. That's I think it's 18 licenses are up next year. 2 of them are going for another 20 more years, because at their Potts Bay and Long Island, they don't grow Atlantis, they grow broodstock and stuff like that. So we're busy. We're really, really busy. And there's more than one thing on the go all the time of setting up in meetings. And for that, that's all my notes I have. And hopefully you hear a lot of questions from here. And we told Bert not to be too hard on us.
Hello, welcome. My name is Donald Victor Isaac, in case some people don't know me as Donald. Most people know me as Victor. I got into Alert Bay about 3 years ago. My wife was returned a little bit. A couple years before that, she works at the ambulance daycare supervisor. But we were away for about 15 years, 12 to 15 years. Went to university at the age of 42, got a degree in business, and worked for INET for 10 years. So we had a bit of a leap from year 2001 on to 2014. 2012, sorry. So we've been back in the community. Well, I've been back for about 3 years. And I was in the community about 3 months, and then the election came up, so I was nominated, so I ran for the position of council. It's been a very busy 3 years. My portfolios are fisheries, housing, finance committee, and public works. So those keep me very busy, especially the fisheries portfolio. As you know, we've got a lot of fisheries skilled people on our council who are very knowledgeable about fisheries, and there's so much fisheries issues that are happening that we have to spread out the load of dealing with all the meetings and all the fisheries issues. The last year, the last election of the Liberals getting in, it's a bit of providing a bit of hope for all of us. with the Liberals, with the reconciliation and those types of programs that they're offering First Nations to give us a bit of hope about treating us a lot better. So that's been a bit of a hope for us that things get better for us that way. And then the NDP got in, which is also a good point for us. The NDP is listening to us, and you can see it on the front with the fish farms. They're laying low right now, but they're working with us to try and understand their issues better and try and get the fish farms out of the water based on the damages that they're causing. So that's a very encouraging part. We have two governments that are here to listen to us now, and it's just up to us to make sure that we get our points across and get those the needs that we need to do, the fish farms out of the water, etc. One of the organizations I belong to is the Island Marine Aquatic Working Group. It's based on Vancouver Island. There's 54 First Nations involved with that group, and we deal with all fisheries-related issues from crabs to halibut to prawns to herring to every species that we enjoy. And another one I'm involved with mainly is the Fraser Salmon Management Council, it's called FSMC, and I sort of adopted that one when I first got here. My friend Greg Adams was the lead on that Fraser Salmon Management Council, and I took over him after he passed on. So that's one of Greg's dreams, was the Fraser Salmon Management Council. It's 71 First Nations in BC, province-wide, with BCRs. To give a mandate to negotiate with DFO to come with a co-management program set up. So we're finalizing that management agreement within the next month or so, and we're ready to present it. What we want to do is have every level of negotiations for making any decision we want to be equal to on every board. So that's what we're pushing for. So you'll see that management plan come up shortly, and I'm very excited about that one. The other one I'm involved with is the Finance Committee. I'm involved with the Finance Committee since I got in. My previous job was with Indian Northern Affairs Canada as a funding service officer, and I did that for about 10 years. And what we were required to do was to give out the funds when they become available, and to make sure that we did the audits at the end of the year, to make sure the spending was in accordance with the agreements. So that taught me a lot, that working with Indian Northern Affairs Canada about the funding programs that we get and Bruna and others administer. So those are the ones that we're mainly interested in. Robbie talked about the fisheries agreements council being away from Mama Omas and other businesses, and council being sort of taken away from those boards that were involved with Orca Sand, Cloudgates, Mama Omas, just so that the politics is away from the business. And it's better that way. It keeps things a lot smoother and more transparent, and everybody seems to be more happy with us being at arm's length away from those. The housing is an encouraging one as well. Kelly Speck and I sit on housing from council, and the banks and the government agencies are looking at our band and favorably, and willing to negotiate a loan of some sort based on our financial background, which is encouraging, and they're willing to loan us some money, but the band is still responsible at the end of the day if we distribute money to band members who qualify. If they renege on their loans, etc., the band is still responsible for those payments. So we're still working on that, so it's going to finalize pretty soon. The funding service officer, like I said, the INAC, it's a 10-year program. I've been there like 10 years, and I worked there. It really taught me a lot about Indian Northern Affairs Canada and the funding part of it. With Public Works, that's another portfolio that I have. Public Works is pretty well, the crew and the staff are very, very good crew and staff, and they work really well in the community. So they're pretty well looked after themselves, but every time we need a job done or an estimate filled out for the, recently the big house and other buildings are in need of repair, so they're able to get us an assessment, and we're able to go from there. One of the other things that have just came out over the years, being involved in fisheries, is when Greg passed away, the council put together $10,000 for a bursary to have our own biologist, grow our own biologist. And Gina, Adams' wife, is one of the people who helped make the decision on who they're going to pick to go to school to be a biologist. So there's a $10,000 bursary available for anybody who's interested, young students that are interested in going on to be a biologist. I've worked in other meetings there where you hear from the West Coast and others. They have 3 of their own now, biologists. They've grown 3 of their own. So that's encouraging that we can get those types of people to come work on our fisheries issues. So those are my issues, those portfolios that I deal with. I'll be running for council on December 8th, and I look for your support. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Arthur Dick. I've been on council for a number of years, I guess probably the longest standing councillor at the present time. One of the things I've learned throughout the years is to keep fighting for our title rights. And then we have the two occupations of the fish farms because of the 35 years of not being heard by DFO about the infringements to our title rights and our food. And I started really looking at what was going on out there. I come to the conclusion that colonization didn't stop, even though they apologized to our people. They just moved it from the land and people to the ocean. And believe it or not, they're using exactly the same tactics that they used on us when they tried to get us out of this country. They're poisoning our fish. There's nothing left out there. 2 million on average return in Glendale Cove. Nothing showing. Talked to Cody, there's 2 hunts returned to Bon Sound. Used to be 3, 4, 5,000 annually, even on the off years. So, when we come to our title rights, and we start writing that stuff down, it's going to be subject to legal review by the government, and they have the best lawyers, and they're going to turn it into something that doesn't fit us. And everywhere we go, we look. And yes, we are protected by the Constitution of 1982. But there's one catch there. It cannot be ruled, governed, or legislated upon by any government unless we give them permission. And that's a real tough one to be trying to figure out what these meetings are all about when they come and talk to us about consultation. You go to consultation, Hyder Taku took care of that for us. There's a step-by-step process in what the governments are supposed to use, and they're not doing it. And I've been fighting like crazy to get them to start abiding by these Supreme Court decisions of Canada that have been made, and the DFO that I'm on with Victor on the IMOG, they look at me as if I'm crazy, but, you know, there's a set rules on what they're supposed to be doing. And the two words that were stapled together by Ida Taku is consultation and accommodation. Well, they've taken so much from us, but they've never accommodated us in any way, not even with jobs or anything. And that's what I'm fighting. One of the things that I brought up years ago when I first started on council was to do a survey on the students that we have going to school that are ready to graduate, to find out what field they wanted to be in, so that we could have some further education for them to get into the chosen field that they wanted to go to. Well, we did it once, and it was a huge success. So I think that what I want to see is for that survey to happen on an annual basis. So we'll be prepared for our students when they come out of high school and not take a year off. You know, you see some of the guys that took a year off, they never got a chance to get back to school. And we need to increase the budget for our students and, you know, not just, oh, well, that's all we get. And, you know, maybe start finding ways to use some of our own source revenue that Robbie's talking about and how to get more post-secondary for our students. I had a conversation with a person on a canoe in Guilford Island a few years back. And a result of that conversation was the settlement trip our kids took. It was just being friendly to the guy that was tied up on the wharf. My grandson and I walked over and talked to him, and he wanted to do something for Alert Bay. And he was with the RCMP when they did their vision quest that they paddled from Prince Rupert to Victoria. And our kids got to go to settlement. And one thing we have to be preparing for now is, as a result of that conversation, our kids went to Shetland, and we have to be prepared for them when they come. They're coming next year, and I hope we have fish for them. That's one thing we have to fight for, to get this fish back. And I got appointed by council to be the IMOG, which is Island Marine Aquatic Working Group, to be the representative, because one of the councillors that were on there before didn't make back into council, so I got put in there. And like Victor says, there's just so many meetings that we need more than two of us to be on that portfolio, because it's just the things are moving so fast now with the changing in the policy that Harper put in, and we're trying to put a stop to some of that stuff. And I think there's 56 nations on Vancouver Island that have been invited to work with that group, and we go down there and get information and bring it back, and then go back with what the council wants us to do. So we have a mandate to talk about certain things. And with the new chief that we have, we're now going to have the opportunity to do that kind of work, and you know, not just have a little write-up blurb. We'd be able to do a presentation to council and bring back a mandate about the meeting that we just had. I just got back today from a meeting with them. And that's my plan for the future, is to go bring all the topics up. And I asked the DFO representatives down there, they had about 8 questions that they asked us, and we didn't see them till we got to the table. And I said, you can't call this a consultation meeting, because we've got to bring it back to our council. I don't have the authority to make that kind of decision without talking to the rest of the council. So that's the new process that they're coming up with. And one of the things Greg always talked about was the fresh water. And he said Big Mom always told him to fight for our water. That water up there is ours. We can't let them have it. And I forget the name of the plants that's going on after East Power. There's another one that's possible to come into play, and we have to start renegotiating on that one and see what kind of benefits we can get for our people. And the thing that I had a conversation with the chief of the Quatsino band at one time, and he talked about one person that went from every different industry that they have, you know, like what we've got, Quagis, Kutera, Hyde, you know, all the different forestry, fishery and stuff. And that one person went and met with the board of directors, and he came and reported back to council. So I mentioned it quite a while back, and now we're working on developing that system so that we'll have a limited partnership, and a limited partnership gives us a tax exemption. So if we have anybody working for the band or any of the councillors on the board of directors that takes away the tax exemption that we have, and it's not harder than we thought it was going to be. But we're in the process of doing that as a council, and you know, some of the standards that get set, we can't find anybody to fit the bill. So we need to do a little bit more work on that, and Orca Sand and Gravel, the owners of Orca Sand and Gravel was sold. I can't remember the name of the outfit that bought it, but I was sick when I had a meeting with them, and I didn't get to talk to them, but they're doing a project right now that's going to take down a mountain over there in Fort McNeil, and they're going to crush it. And there's going to be 4 trucks running every day to bring that crushed rock down to the quarry where the conveyor belts and stuff are. And I mentioned it to the board of directors of Orca Sand and Gravel that we want 2 of our boys working on those trucks, and we want to see some funding from you, and to enable our boys to buy 2 trucks to go work for them, and it'll be a lifetime job. They'll be there till they collect a pension. That's the kind of stuff. I look for jobs for everything, you know, and every what do you call it? And you know, being a clam digger in the past, it's really hard to see our boys still sitting here at home. We used to start digging clams right in the first week of October. But the bureaucracy within DFO has changed, and now they have spot openings. They even include our food harvesting of clams into those spot openings, and that's an infringement on our title and rights, because nobody can come and tell me that you can't go dig there because we didn't open it. And I'd like to see what the changes are, because I did that job for testing the clams for years with KTFC, Robbie and I. And result of us sitting at the ferry committee, Sharon Gordon and myself, where we talked with them and came up with some ideas of what was going to happen, and they came up with some plans of their own, and we're going to be getting the first brand new ferry in 2020, 40 plus passenger ferry, and that's because we have a seat on that board, and we'd like to continue with that kind of work, and that's about all I have to say. It's just that every avenue that I'm in, I'm looking for work for people, so you know, especially for long-term work. So that's what I'm fighting for. Bill Kessler.
Okay, we'll begin the question and answer period. So someone from the community can come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and just by name, and then ask a question, and then each candidate in turn will get a chance to answer that question.
Hi. Hello? 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 Hi, Bert Isaac. Good to be here. First of all, I'll read out something here and ask a question. How's that? John Macko sends his regrets. He is conducting a family commitment that has been planned for quite some time. He is spending quality time with our mom, Laura Cook, and our sister, Irene Isaac, enjoying 1 week together in Hawaii this week. Macko said he'll gather information from our members so we'll get an idea of our current concerns and needs for our Namgis membership. Macko said he is willing to work with our Namgis members, chief and council. Macko looks forward to a positive vote leaning towards his favor on December 8th. It is a new opportunity for him to be in this capacity as a Namgis band councillor, and he will do his best to seek your direction. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thanks for listening to me. Vote for Johnny Alfred Macko, December 8th. Cool. One of the things I'm hearing, and I've been hearing just from Dixon, I believe, earlier about how many meetings have been happening, especially from the former chief and now the current band chief, about how many meetings the band councillors are doing. And then the AGM is coming up, and I know that I attended, I believe, last year's AGM. It just seemed so much information, and I was overwhelmed with the information, and I'm sure other band members felt the same way. And also I felt restricted in time to say my piece, as most other members most likely felt the same way. It felt restricted for the 2 days of AGM. I know at one point years ago we used to have more than one AGM, once a year or twice a year or something. However, I'm wondering, like I hear consultation, I'm wondering if the band councillors maybe in the next few years bring all of this to the members for consultation. Having a visioning workshop stuff with our community members. When I hear strategic planning to me means go back to your members, ask your members what your needs are. So I'm wondering if you're going to involve us as to what you've been doing with all these meetings the last few years. I think the visioning direction needs to be done because I feel lost not knowing, and I need to know. And what is your platform to bring the members together for a visioning direction? Thank you.
Thanks, Bert.
As I said earlier, it is difficult to be as transparent as we would like to be. In the past year and a half, we have attempted to have a one additional community general meeting. This meeting that's coming up next month has to deal with the audit. The one that we have in the spring is more general and covers the basis that we can't really deal with in the when we are dealing primarily with the audit. You know, and I agree with you that the information that we provide is overwhelming, especially if you are just starting or just picking it up. If you've been with the process for a little while, you're not left all alone. You know, and you know, even when we come up here, like one of the things I did want to say when I first spoke is, like, we've been advised that we only have 15 years of old growth forest left in the valley. You know, and that's critical. That means that we don't have any. You know, we can't. You know, we really should be finding a way to put the brakes on the taking of any more old growth timber that we have, because it's the 15 years is going to be up in no time at all.
Thanks, Bert. I know the information overload is horrendous. I remember one of the AGMs before the previous chief got in that the members put forward a mandate at one of the AGMs to have 3 or 4 meetings, and it was voted on at the general meeting. And that was never followed through. I think the members need to bring this up again at the AGM. I think, like Dixon was saying, this one's strictly for the audit and finance and everything. We did just have one with just businesses not very long ago. But I think we do need just general meetings to go over a lot of the stuff that we're doing, and we're doing a lot of stuff, really lots. It's overload for us, but if we bring it to the members in 3 or 4 general meetings a year, I don't think we have to overload them with one at the AGM. It's way too much information. And for us, who've been there for years, it's still way too much information. And I think we need to do that. And because I remember when Deb got in, we did have a general meeting in May for the first 2 years. In our 3rd year, we didn't have one for some reason. But I still think we still need 2 general meetings and 1 AGM minimum per year to get the information across to the members. Because I don't think anybody remembers what goes on the whole 2 days for the AGM. It's too much. And for all the other planning, comprehensive community plan, we have a plan, but it's not being finalized yet. But I still think we need to go to the members for that to get more input to see if we can finalize it. It's close. We just need to put all our plans together. We have more than one comprehensive community plan. We just need to put them together. And the land code, the same thing. The members will be involved in that and figure out how we're going to split up the reserve. And the title and rights forum that we had to make decisions for what's coming forward, I think the members need to know what the hell's going on. A lot of people don't know what we're doing in the title and rights forum. We're fighting for our title and rights to be part of our territory again. And I think we need just a meeting on that to let the members know what we're doing. A lot of them, people don't know what we're doing on title and rights forum. And we're doing it with hereditary chiefs. So I think even an information session on title and rights needs to be done as well too. And the strategic planning, it has to be done. I know we're going to do it with all the department heads, the chief and council, but I do believe that the community needs to be involved as well too. So they have input on how health care works, how the rec centers can work, how the schools can work, and stuff like that. I'm tired of this top-down attitude. got to get the information from the ground level workers and the members and implement what they want, not us telling them what they want. So I think more plans on that has to be done. And yeah, we do have a lot of meetings that we need to meet with the members on. And hopefully this is brought up at the AGM too, so we can get your guys' input and tell us to do it.
Thank you for the question, Bert. We've discussed this in our council meetings in regards to the AGMs and the overload that is happening. You know, it's a lot of information to delve into in so short of a time period. You got the health issues, you know, the financial issues, the business issues, all the issues that people want to hear about. They want to update on all those issues. And it's a lot to absorb within a short period of time, for sure. So we try and say, well, let's do 5 minutes each, and try and move the meeting along, right? Those are all standard ways of doing it. But you know, the parking lots that we have, the breakout sessions, you know, those types of things, those aren't being ignored. Those are being compiled. And your idea of having a community meeting to discuss all those and come up with a vision or a strategic plan is a good one. You know, I mean, there's been some of it done, but not enough. The vision statement. I know we worked with the last chief, Deborah. We went down to the cabin down at the island there, the lodge, and we did strategic planning. And we used these little clickers here that discussed all the issues of the community, and then we voted by way of clicker so that nobody really understand or see who was voting for what, right? So those types of ways of doing it are good, and you know your idea of a strategic plan and get the community involved is a good one. So we are definitely considering that for sure. Thank you.
One of the things you need to understand about AGM is an annual general meeting that we're required to do to report the finances to the people, and we have to have the audit done before we can have an annual general meeting. A general meeting is for some real heavy-duty topics that council is not. We need the help of the people to make that decision, and some of the requirements and policies that are in place require us to come to the people to get permission. I just use that example of when Hank wanted to start fishing after a certain number of fish went up the river. So DFO has a formula they use, and they reach a certain number, they start taking 10% of the run that goes up. And that's what we did. So what happened was, after some talking, we decided to take that to the people. And there was a couple of meetings done at the council hall where we were directed by the people to go and get that fish. It's not a food fishery per se. It's a council-run thing. But everybody thought to open the river, and we do have title rights to go fish, so we couldn't do anything about that. But what happens when you get direction from the people, and the people tell us what to do, the governments have to sit up and listen. It's not just the 10 people at the table making this decision anymore, it's the general public. And this is what they want. And that was one of my statements at the last all candidates meeting was I want to see more meetings. And it doesn't have to be an annual general meeting. You just have a general meeting on certain heavy-duty topics that we need your help with. So that's what I see in the future is more and more of these. And you know, I go to all these meetings and I talk to a lot of different people, and they always bring things to the people to get the clout of the general population and the political forum. That's what that's all about. So we need to do things like, you know, another Orcasan, another Portuguese, or another. We've got to bring it to you, to the general public, to get the permission to do that. You know, that's just examples. I'm not saying that we're doing that. It's just examples of what we need to do. So, yeah, I agree. We need more meetings with the general public. Okay.
Okay, and next, do we have anything? Okay, we're ready for another question from the community, either online or here present. Nothing online yet, okay. So someone from the community can come up and ask a question. It's a requirement, not from me, but from the community and from candidates in the past, to identify yourself when you are going to ask a question of the candidates, just your name, and then a simple question or a straightforward question. Try to avoid multiple questions that wind up being very difficult to answer and a lot of overlap with other questions. Okay, so whoever would like to ask a question can come up.
My name is Helen Speck. I'm actually a member of the council, but I'm also a member of the community, so I welcome the opportunity to ask you gentlemen some questions. I want to start by just a little update because Art made a statement that shifted over time. We actually have Polaris, which is the partner company that we are in a limited partnership with, to own Orcasan and Gravel. And there was a company that made an offer, and it looked like it was going to be approved by the shareholders. Before they could do that process, a second company came forward and made a better offer to Polaris and the board. And so the shareholders have just concluded voting. We don't know the outcome of that yet, but we assume that it will in fact be an offer that is approved by the shareholders of the company. And so if they're successful, our new partner would be US Concrete. And that's the group that we actually had an opportunity that unfortunately Art wasn't able to be with us because of illness. But just, it's going to be updated at our AGM, but perhaps people here or online might not hear it. So I just wanted to clarify that in fact the sale hasn't been completed yet. The shareholders vote and then that package goes to the court and a judge actually gets to approve it. So there's a bit of a few steps away before that process is concluded. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't leave that information and people will wonder later what it was talking about because it won't be in coordination. One of the responsibilities of councillors is to obviously be responsible for the finances of the nation. So I'm wondering if each of you can speak to what you sort of understand to be the state of affairs of the liabilities and assets of the nation and what you see as your fiduciary duty in relation to that aspect of your responsibility as a councillor.
Is that a pass? Oh, I see. Okay, yes. Okay, yes. Sorry.
You set up the rules. Thank you, Kelly. The fiduciary duty of council is to look after the money for the members, for the benefit of the members. And we as council on there have to know what is happening with our finances in all our departments. And I think we need a lot more updates ourselves, but the organization is so huge. You've got finance with health and the school and Orcas-Sand and the administration and everything else. But we need, as council, our fiduciary duty is to make sure that our money is spent wisely and not just ad hoc, this and that. And like I said in our meetings, the members put forward what type of action plan they want, so how we can spend the money like we did with the last AGM. There was a big plan set forward. Like I said, it wasn't completed, but we're still working on that. And all the fiduciary money is fiduciary job for chief and council is to make sure that it's spent wisely. A lot of the programs and services dollars, we really don't have a say in it. We just have to make sure it's spent. Because a lot of that money, if it isn't spent in the programs, it gets clawed back by INAC. And that's happened a few times over the years. And what's this? I had to ask him. Oh, that went back to INAC because it wasn't spent. And I was flabbergasted. I didn't know that either. But we need to be way more up on our finances as well. It's a big, big, big job. And a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, we are getting own source revenue from our companies, from Orcas-Sand and from Quaggy's Power and the Forestry Company. All that own source revenue is up to the members how we spend it. It's not us. We can't just go, oh, let's go buy this, let's go buy that. Well, we have to set a plan, and it's up to the members to decide how we spend it. That's our fiduciary duty. We're just trustees of your guys' money. It's not ours. It's your guys'. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Kelly. Being involved with finances with the Aboriginal Affairs Canada, I was funding service officer. I looked up after 14 and as many as 18 First Nations and members, organizations, finances. And along the way you've seen some misspending, some spending where they spent the dollars that weren't supposed to be for a particular program, and they would go into financial difficulties. And it's easy to do. Once you start going off the path with what some of the First Nations did, you get into like a co-management agreement up to a third-party agreement, which means the third party will come in and take over your finances until it's all clean and straightened out. So you never want to get to that. You never want to get to that level that I've seen. I've seen at least 2 or 3 of the First Nations that I looked after, mishandle the funds through, sometimes it's a court case that comes up, and they figure, well, let's just spend it on a court case. Sooner or later, the things start to go over the hand, and the dollars get moved around in a wrongful manner. So it's easy to get in trouble. Being involved in the finance committee, we look at all the programs, all the health center, the school, everyone that program that we're involved with, and make sure that the finances are what we can do to try and help them make recommendations on trying to spend it a little bit more wisely, so to speak, and make sure that it's we're looking after the people's money. So it's a good question, Kelly. But you don't want to get your First Nation in any trouble. I remember years ago when I first got involved in the finance committee, we put up, the controller put up on the board, we said, well, what do you spend some money on this? Where are you going to get the money? The money was limited at that time. So there's always a consequence if you move the money from somewhere to another place. There's always something that's going to happen. So if that money is set out to go in a particular direction, like a particular program, it's got to be spent on that program. Same with our own source revenue. We want to get more transparent. Make sure that the people understand where those dollars are going and make a decision on where they're going to go. So yeah, finance is very key for the people to understand. And if you go down the wrong path with any finances, it's going to end up in a bad result. So it's up to us to make sure it's done and looked after properly. Thanks.
was on the finance committee for a while, and I couldn't make heads or tails with the numbers, so I asked to be taken off, and we never had too many meetings, not like today with the new chiefs and council. And what I was told years ago when I sat around with the old-time councilors that used to come to my dad's house was that money belongs to the people. You have a right to know. And the responsibility of the council is to come and let you know where that money is, how much is there, and whatnot. And, you know, the things that being talked about here, when we talk about old source revenue, well, under the books, it's got a different title. So when you ask for old source revenue at the council table, they won't give it to you because it's got a different title. And I really don't like that system when you talk about old source revenue from a logging company. Well, you know, you should be able to get an answer, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm up against. And you know, you listen to our elder Dixon here talking about transparency and clarity. That's where that all starts, and you know, we have to be accountable to you. I, Arthur Dick, have to be accountable to you about where that money is being spent. That's my fiduciary responsibility as a council. And if I don't get cooperation from our people that's working for us, then something's wrong with that system. And I want to work on that so we'll all have an understanding of what we have in the banks and how much we can spend here and there. So that's my take on it, and I don't mean to come up here to belittle anybody, but yeah, the council has to know too, not just the finance committee. The whole council has to be involved with it because it's a fiduciary. And I did bring a paper up that was done about fiduciary by some university, the fiduciary for council, and the top of the list was how that money is being spent. So that's why I'm making these statements, because I made a copy and put it in everybody's box, and we still have to see the outcome of that. Good, I guess.
This question is a really good one, and the easiest way that I can deal with how I deal with my fiduciary responsibility to the band members is the experience that I had when I was acting senior administrator for 7 months. I was responsible for the way the money was being spent and accounted for, that was coming in and going out. And the way that I can be transparent is, I knew that if I didn't want to be accountable, there's only one choice I had. I could decide that I was going to stay on council, and if I did that, I couldn't be paid for doing this because it would be a conflict of interest. So I chose not to, and I feel quite comfortable with that. It allowed me to start making decisions which are hard to talk about, because sometimes people, and council is included in this, you make decisions which you think are right ones. But then in the end, the wheels fall off. They end up wrong. The clearest experience I've had on council is with Kutera. Kutera started out that they weren't going to, we were told by people that worked for the band that there wasn't going to be one nickel of band money put in to Kutera. It didn't end up that way. Right now, we have an experience where we have a couple of banks and another company that money was borrowed from to keep Kutera going. And I don't really begrudge them with the decisions they made, but they were really risking money that belongs to the people. There's no question about that. And now what we've got is, in the 3 years that I've been on council, which is about 2.5, we've been having to sit on monies that we have put aside on long-term deposits because we owe this money to banks. I'll give you an example. The council of the day decided that it wouldn't be a bad idea, it would help Kutera if they approved a line of credit for them to access. And a line of credit becomes like cash, you see. And I might be speaking out of turn, but I'm on this road now. But they approved the line of credit for $1 million. And within about 8 weeks of having approved that line of credit, the board of Kutera had drawn down the $1 million. And that's not the end of it though. The Nunavut community, and that's you guys, is still paying the interest on that. You don't get that money for free. So they're paying the interest money month by month on that $1 million line of credit. The only way that we could get out from underneath it would be to take the money that they're actually sitting on in case the bank that this is drawn off requests their money. We've got to be able to pay it. And that's why they're sitting on it. And so I figured that I always got to be worried about not only where the money's going, but the perception of what you're doing with the money. And I think that the perception is really important. That's the only real check and balance that we have. If we don't go and you're really rolling the dice. That's what happened with this. And that's not the only time that happened with Kutera. In different scenarios, 500,000, 750,000. And my way of thinking is we have to sell a lot of trout, because that's what Atlantic salmon is. You have to sell a lot of trout in order to make $1 million in profit.
Okay, we're ready for another question from the community, online or present. Don't be shy, just step up to the mic.
Keep it short. I'm just to feel confident for myself and for our members, like I heard about the fish farms and then having to look at getting most of the information from Facebook about what's going on lately with the injunction towards fish farm protesters in our territories. I'm just wondering, with the what is the stance of Namgi's band? What is it that what are you doing to ensure support for our people that are out there, the fish farm protesters, and for our community for the future? Thank you.
Victor, I believe you'll be going first on this.
Good question, Bert. The fish farm issue has been, in our thorn in our side for 30 plus years. I remember with the KTFC, we've been trying to get them to the water and we had a zero tolerance, and that's always been our position, is to get those guys out of the water. So, with the latest occupiers going into there, we support them, but there's legalities involved when First Nation is involved as well, so you have to be sort of careful with that. There's a lot of planning going on with the hereditary chiefs, with the member bands involved. There's ongoing planning going on. They invite us to participate, and Kelly's participating quite heavily lately with helping them. That's good. But yeah, it's always been our goal to get these out of the water. And we support any way we can, but sometimes you have to be watch what are the legalities of it. So definitely we're supporting all rights to get those out of the water, all the movements that are happening. So I just want to give you that confidence, Edward. Thank you.
Fish farms, wow. Never thought we'd be up here. What's that? Because we've only got one in our territory, and that's Swanson. The rest is Muskimo and Mamalota. But as a member of KTFC, before I got elected, one of my mandates from Kelly Tuttle was to go out there and look for the pros and cons of fish farming. And for 9 years I did that, just standing order, I had note after note about all the bad stuff, but the only thing that the fish farms put up was would provide jobs and put food on the table. That was it. That's the only positive that's out there. Everything else is derogatory. And because of the lawyers are now involved, we've been put on because of the legalities that's going to be coming into play. We've been asked to keep, not to speak on behalf of the Nimkish band because we may be in court. And and we don't want to spill the beans too, what we're going to be doing. So, I can speak personally as Arthur Dick about fish farms, but I can't speak as a Nimkish band counselor representing you about the fish farms. That's what the lawyer told us, not just like a couple of weeks ago. So that's coming all coming into play now, and it's just a lack of them listening to us for the past 30 plus years. And the fish in the mainland, John talks about it all the time, mackerel. There used to be like raindrops in there in the summertime, clear blue sky when the humpies were jumping all over the place and go cheating. So, process of elimination, there's only one thing that's different out there is the fish farms. So, yeah, and the Nimkish band, when I first got elected, we said zero tolerance to aquaculture. The government came back and told us that that's not legal, because all agriculture, farming kelps, farming abalone, farming clams and stuff like that would have been included. So we had to change our tactic and say we have zero tolerance to open net fish farms. And that made it illegal that we could take that stand. And the Nimper's Band has always had that stand as a council, because way back when there was duly motion passed by council that we had that stand, and we still have it. It's never been rescinded, so it's there that we support what's going on out there. I guess that's about all I can say about that. Okay.
I'll be short and sweet. I don't support fish farms. I never have. So I find it a little bit difficult. But as a counselor, you know, just so that you can have some information to go away with birdies, we are on a kind of a short leash, because we've chosen that in order to fight this fight, we need to go legal. And so we do have people assisting us and helping us to move forward as best as we can.
Hello. Yeah, like Art was saying, that we've been fighting the fish farm issue for over 30 years. And what's going on now is we do support what's going on out there, but we can't physically help them with any money or anything like that. But there's a lot going on in the background, and the hereditary chief of the other nations have their own lawyer, the other bands have their own lawyer. So they're putting legal strategies together. That's about all I know from that. Because they were kicked off Midsummer a couple days ago, it was put out there that they have 30 days to put all their evidence together. So that's what they're going to do, because they go back to court in 30 days. And they're doing that. And we're also backing up Alexandra Morton, and she's going to court as well too, trying to stop these diseased fish being put in the water. And it's been proven by one of DFO's own scientists, Christy Miller, has identified that the fish farms do have that PRV disease. Marine Harvest has stated in court that there's a PRV disease. And also, what hasn't been told, and Christy Miller's paper is coming out in sometime this week, or I think it was supposed to be out today sometime. Christy Miller found the PRV virus in our Pacific salmon. She had this report done 5 years ago before the Cohen Committee, but Harper stopped her from telling us what she had. And our Pacific salmon have it already. And it's in her scientific paper, and they had known about this for years, that their fish going in the water have that disease. And it's totally BS for me. And this is totally being spearheaded by the hereditary chiefs of the other nations, and the hereditary chiefs of Numbies are involved as well too. And the one site that we still have out there is Swanson. That is still occupied. Not really occupied, but people are out there because they got a land base close to the farm. They're still out there. They're going to continue the occupation to make sure it doesn't get restocked, because all these licenses, like I said, are expiring in June. So we are, like Art and was saying, we are supporting them, but in the background. And there is legal things happening all over the place. I don't know the ramifications of what's really happening, but something is happening.
So we're ready for another question? Anything online? Okay. Another question from the community? Mary?
Kayla Kessler, my name is Noreen Smith, and I come from the Alfred, the Dick, and the Cranmer family. I would like to start my speech with thanking those who are finishing their terms. The 5 councillors, thank you for your hard work sitting on council a few years ago. I know how hard it is, not only to sit on the whole as a council, but trying to keep track of all the different committees you have to be on. Before I ask my question, I'm also sending regrets from William Turner Cranmer, who is away on family medical business right now and apologizes for being absent. He would like to send a message that he would like to continue to work with the council and the membership. Also regrets for my sister Barbara Corrine Cranmer, who also couldn't make it tonight because she had medical appointments off island as well. And she wanted me to pass on that she's had some time off and she's ready to get back in there and do some work. I believe she served on council for 14 years and she's put her hat in the ring again. So those are the 2 messages that I have to send right now. My question for council is, and I had the opportunity to sit on the housing committee, which is not an easy place to be, and I'm sure this is a thorn in many people's side. It's not only community members, but council members as well. I think I was only on council for 1 month before I got thrown into the housing committee. Kind of freaked me out there, and I sat on it the whole 3 years I was on council. My question is to council, what is going to happen here, take probably 500, with the revolving housing fund? It was something that was very successful for our First Nations in the past. I know that from experience of being on the housing committee, it appeared that rules applied for some people and not for others, and yet we have rules that are there in place. I'm a Pisces, so that makes me a control freak, and I believe in rules, and I think they need to be followed, regardless of who you are and what family you come from. And I'm especially saying this because I do thank the Numbleys First Nation for taking the MOT. I know it's not reserved, but they have taken that over to manage housing, and that's where I've been for the last 2.5 years. And I'm 51 years old, and I don't have a house on reserve, and I don't plan on going anywhere. I've been blessed with a great grandson this past year. He's now 17 months, and I'm still paying rent. I probably paid plus 80,000 plus in rent that doesn't go to my credit anywhere. So my question to you is, what kind of new ideas will, if you're elected back in and get put on the housing committee, new angles that we can look at to get our revolving housing committee back in order? Our revolving housing fund, not committee. I apologize, I realized that when I said that when I walked away.
Our housing's been in dire straits for quite some time. And we've had different people come up and do presentations on how to straighten it out. But the question I always ask at the end of the day is, some people are 20 grand in home. Why was it allowed to go that far? Why weren't we brought in as council instead of saying, that's your problem? So it's not my problem, but my problem is to solve that. And the only thing that I could ever think of was to extend their contract and make them pay a little extra. It's the only way you're going to get your money back, because all these new problems are looking at starting at ground zero. No, nothing in hole, nothing in back. But if they're 20 grand in a hole, how many years do you add on to the contract that they have to pay that house out? That's the only way it's gonna work, because, you know, it's not like when we were fishing where we go out and make 20 grand a week. That's when all those policies were put in place, and we have to look at that kind of option to do something about that. And I couldn't get any support for what I asked for what I said at council, and I just avoided housing because of the, I don't want to say too much negativity stuff. I'd rather be positive, and that would be a plan of mine to extend the contract X number of years to cover off that 20,000 or whatever, 5,000 or whatever. Instead of adding to their payments, you add the years to their contract. That way we'd be able to get our money back. But right now, there's no plan in place to get our money back, even with all the new plans that these different banks have come to us to help us solve that problem. But it's always starting from ground zero, so we have to do something about the ones that are already in home. And get a report on an annual basis, what was expected, what's the expected payments in full, and what we actually get, so we can have a referral system that we can refer to. Well, you know, well, we're supposed to get this amount of money, but we only got this. So then we can make some pretty harsh decisions on how we're going to treat people. But the people all the new policies that have been talked about, I think Bank of Montreal came to us, and a couple of other entities came to us about how to do it, and it sounds like it's a real good plan to start for the new ones that are coming into getting houses, and I don't know if we can afford to build any more houses right now. That's about all I can say. Madam President.
You asked a tough question, because there's no easy answer to this. A little bit of history. When I was in university in 1970s, early 70s, my mom called me to come home because she wanted to talk to me. And so what she explained to me is that she wanted to find out if it would be a good idea for her to sign into this housing program that they were getting underway, and it was the revolving housing. She and my dad had to give up the $22,500 that Indian Affairs provided. It went in to basically seed money for the housing fund. Plus, they wanted to give up, I've forgotten the name of it now, it's getting old. The stuff that you got from the, Debbie's got only one now.
CP.
Yeah, CP. She had, my mom and dad had to give up their CP for the property that the house was going to be on. And the best thing that came out of it for me is I live and own the house that my mom was talking about. That's the one I've got right now. What I haven't dealt with is, since I'm being candid here, what I haven't dealt with is my mom and dad actually had two pieces of property, and the band, in their wisdom, thought of it only as one. And I can't make myself decide that I'm going to go and fight with somebody because the band gave half of my dad's property to Bishop. He needs it just as much as I do. because they just cut that lot in between us in half. And I don't need that, so I just haven't really decided to follow up on there's another piece in there that when my mom got sick and passed, I didn't know this, but she gave me a bank book and she gave me a blank check. She was in, I think it was called the Fisheries Credit Union or something like that in Vancouver. As soon as she passed, she signed it all over to me, and there was enough in there to pay off the money they still owed on the house. So I went to Vancouver, cashed the check, came straight up to Alert Day, went to the band office, and put the money in. And so I guess the reason why I'm telling you this story is that the revolving housing fund was started with my mom and dad being, at least a piece of that. And so it worked as far as they were concerned. And for some reason, we have a hard time making people understand that if they're not paying their monthly mortgage, it's affecting a whole bunch of other people. There's a ripple effect. That business with the housing, I'd hate to think of how many hours that's been spent by people in our band, elected, paid, volunteers, working to try to deal with the housing situation, and we're just hurting ourselves. But it's something that we need to try and our best to see if we can come up with a solution. I know that the people we have on the housing portfolio, it's hard on them too. And I know people that have been volunteers for ages on the housing committee, and they're having a hard time even getting a meeting right now. They can't pull it together so that the volunteers can come forward and meet to come up with another try. But it's not going to be easy, but I also hear what you're saying. You wouldn't mind that in your own place. Putting your money into something that you're going to eventually own. And I thank you for the question.
Thanks for the question, Noreen. I was on the housing committee as well for one term only, but I've seen all the problems, and everybody mentioned the arrears, and I really don't understand that either. But we need to hire our own housing coordinator who will be able to enforce the housing policy. And we don't have a housing coordinator per se to be able to do that. And we also met with Bank of Montreal to set up a system where a member can borrow money to build a house, but the band has to guarantee that loan. And if that happens and they go in arrears, they can be kicked out right away. So we need somebody to enforce what's going on, because a lot of that stuff is not happening, hasn't happened over the years. They're supposed to be removed, it's covered in the policy, and it's just not being enforced. And I think we need to do that. And a lot of the stuff, we talk about it and members talk about it, is that the revolving housing would have been kept up if we did the math. I remember Longo talking about this a long time ago. We should have done the math. Shouldn't be charging $150 a month, $200 a month, $250 a month. My daughter has a 3-bedroom in Vancouver in native housing, and that's really low rent. She's got a 3-bedroom for $1,000 a month. My son's got one bedroom in Vancouver for $1,200 a month for one bedroom. And they're paying those prices for housing. And people complaining about $300, $350 a month, I don't understand that. But that's what will happen if we go to BMO and guarantee their loans. The rents will probably be higher, $700, $800 a month, I'm not quite sure. But it will be higher, but they have to promise to pay that. And I know when I was on housing that 70% of the people on the list were single people. When I went over it, they're just single people. And I know a lot of the single people on our list are still living with their grandmother and their mother and their aunts and uncles and stuff like that. I know they want to move out, but we need to identify types of housing to build. And I was at a meeting in Vancouver and met up with some of the First Nations who are actually building houses. I met with the chief of Bella Bella and Bella Coola, and they built 8 houses this year and they're building 12 houses next year. I said, how the hell did you get money for that? We met with INEC and asked. And like I said earlier, we need to do more of that politicking and bring the ministers in and have people from INEC come in and ask. Not ask, like I said before, we need to demand more money for housing. And that's what those other First Nations have done. They met with the ministers from INEC in Vancouver or whoever's down there and demanded money. And they're getting their houses built. And I was just talking to the chief from Bella Coola the other day. They train their own people to build their own houses as well too. And we need to do that. We talked about that the other day. We need to train our own people to build their own houses. And the fact is that they're so remote. They had an innovative idea, not from building from scratch, but to build modular homes that they can put together. It's way cheaper, except their transportation is so high because it's way up there. But modular homes, you can build 1 or 2 bedrooms, but you can add on 1 or 2 extra bedrooms if you have kids. And when the kids leave, you can take those modulars off and move it back to 1 or 2 bedrooms. So that they do have houses like that where you can expand or contract the houses to how many people live there. And that's an option. And for us to build houses, we have to demand to meet with the ministers. And we were told that we can't build anymore. We can only build houses on the reserve as long as we build on those existing lots on the back road, which are 8 or 9 of them back there. We can't build any houses until we get those filled. And if we want to build any more houses on top of that, we need infrastructure money. They won't give us any infrastructure money for water and sewer until those lots are filled. So we're in a catch-222 on that, to expand our reserve for where the other houses should be. And yeah, we need a lot more work to be done. And we're meeting people, we're meeting with housing, we're meeting with that housing society or whatever. I can't remember the name of it. We met with somebody where there's some funds there. I can't remember who that funds were coming through, but there's still lots of planning, still a lot of hard work to do in housing. I know there's going to be, I don't want to make the decision, so it's going to have to be made.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Rick. I got into politics when I was 20 years old, and when I was in the served for 20 years. The revolving housing fund was at $3 million during that time that I was first elected. We had a lot of money to go around to build houses, etc., to help people. And then the fishing industry is one of the major contributors to that fund being depleted. People can't pay their rents, but that still contributes some money towards the revolving housing, because the concept was to pay your house off knowing that your children were going to benefit. So that revolving housing fund was always going to be available. That was the concept. Councilors years ago went to Ottawa and came back with $500,000 to start that. And then, you know, it built to $3 million. And it was, in good times, you know, it was really helpful to have. Now, when I first got back in the community 3 years ago, it was near $800,000. And it's come up a little bit, but not by much. And the only thing we can do now is renovations, and it's, you know, minor renovations. And you still have to qualify for you can't be in arrears of any kind to benefit from those sort of renovation dollars that are available right now. So it's a tough business dealing with First Nations housing. Like I said, I worked for INAC for 10 years. In all of the province, and the issues are the same on every reserve. You know, it's hard to see a really successful reserve that's rare that has a good housing program. A lot of the issues are the same, jobs, etc. People can't afford it. So, but there's been many efforts by administration and the council to try and get people to renegotiate their contracts, to try and pay something if they can. But you know, it starts for a while, then it ends up falling apart again. So, you know, the efforts are still there. Kelly and I went to the housing symposium a couple of years ago in Vancouver. Listened to this fellow talk about how he was successful in the interior, and you know, he had to make some hard decisions, and in the end, you know, he was successful in making sure that people were making their payments for those houses, so they get that bank back in order again, so that they weren't responsible for the dollars that the banks loaned to the bank, because you're still responsible for those dollars. Even if a bank loans the money to the band member, the bank has to sign off and say, well, we'll guarantee that loan. So when the person reneges on that loan, then the bank's responsible to come up with the dollars. So it's a tough one, you know, dealing with financial bank dollars for, you know, one First Nation that I was dealing with, they used all their own source revenue to buy houses for each member. And a small reserve, 33, 35 houses, whatever. But they found out that the sense of ownership, I guess, was in question. People with a light bulb would burn out. They'd get a call from the band out saying, come over and change this little light bulb, whatever. So the sense of ownership and the pride in that wasn't as strong as it could be, right? And you even hear band members talk about, when I got back, you know, the payments of $350 a month, like it was said. They were wondering how come it was, you know, they would have gladly paid a bit more, you know, to help the revolving housing fund get back to where it was. So, but you know, it's a tough one. Some tough decisions have to be made. Some ideas have come up. Some planning has happened. But you know, like I said, it's about 800,000 now, and you know, we're Canada-wide, BC-wide, First Nations housing is always on the news. Always on the news as one of the hardships of Canada, right? But the government, you know, if they are serious about reconciliation, etc., and trying to help First Nations, the Kelowna Accord always went through. That would have been a good one for housing. You know, the INAC is considered when they give you money now, that you keep it a longer term. Now you don't have to give it up. You can use it for planning and building houses down the road. You don't have to give it back on a certain date anymore. So they've changed that road. They're adding 2% to infrastructure, which is good. It's big money. Doesn't sound very big, but infrastructure is key to building houses. So lots of ideas have come up and trying to get it back in order, but it's a tough one. You need to know that for housing. But you know, we're doing everything we can. We've talked to the banks. We've asked them to come up with a loan, but we're still going to be ultimately responsible if somebody reneges. So we're trying to find people who are capable of making these loans, building houses. A house on the recent one we just built, $240,000 just to build that house. That's the going rate right now. You know, on the house I live in, it was $46,000 back in 1973. So the big difference in building a house nowadays. And, you know, with $800,000 in the bank, it's not going to do very much. So, you know, we get some own source revenue dollars down the road, some things that happen positively, you know, we can start to do things. But you know, it's a tough road to take that housing. Thanks.
Okay, we're ready for another question. Anyone want to step forward with a question for the candidates? Nothing online? Okay. We'll, Bert, did you? Okay. We'll just give it a minute, and if there's no more questions, then we'll pack it in.
Okay, we have an announcement with regards to date, because we're online right now. If we can get the dates and time frame for advance poll and polling date, please.
Yes, I usually do that at the end, but that's, maybe we're there.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, just
Yes.
not to forget that.
November 24th, that is in 1 week from today, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the Elder Center is advance poll. And of course, for people off reserve, they have received packages that they are mailing in their votes. If you happen to be in town and you're from off reserve, even if you've mailed in your vote already, but you want to go and experience voting in person, you can come down and vote in person as well. Don't worry, your vote will not be counted twice. We have the technology. But anyone can vote on the advance poll day, or election day being, of course, 2 weeks from this date. So we've got December 8th is the final election day, and at that time all the votes will be tallied and the winners will be announced. Okay, if there's no other questions, we can move to closing statements, and then we'll close the meeting. So we'll just start with whoever was next in the lineup there, and we'll go through the candidates for a closing statements.
I don't know how it worked out that I ended up being next in line when I started early. But it was good planning, I guess. But I just want to take a moment to thank you all for coming out. It would have been nice to have more people, but you know, we're happy with what we got, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'd be happy to serve on council for another term, and I thank you for at least giving me the opportunity.
I'd like to thank everybody who is here and online, and I believe this can be reviewed online at a later date as well. Alana? No? Okay. I'd like to thank everybody that also is running and participating, and for the other members who aren't here or sick or traveling or whatever they're doing. And I hear Gerald isn't feeling well either. Longo, why he's not here as well too. So that's why he's not here as well. So, but I'd like to thank everybody, and there's a lot of work still to be done. There's so much planning that needs to be done in the next few years that it's going to be a lot of meetings. And one thing that wasn't mentioned is that I'm on an ECDEV portfolio, and there's so much to do with ECDEV. We need to do a lot more planning as a band, but we are doing lots of ECDEV stuff with the Tide to Change committee, and doing lots about trying to get our wharf built, our fuel dock built, and stuff like that. But the ECDEV stuff, we have to bring to the members at the AGM and let them know what our plans are. We are going to put that new roof on the nurses' residence so it doesn't get more damage than they have right now, because the roof is leaking. And there's plans, long-range plans, to use that as a hotel or a restaurant or something. But that's we have to bring that to the members. And there is a lot of other opportunities for tourism, big plans for tourism as well too. I've been to a few tourism symposiums, they're called, and there is a lot of help out there. We just need to access it, and the Aboriginal business part I went to in Port Hardy, really interesting about how many Aboriginal business opportunities there is out there. There's a lot of people out there that can help. We just need to reach out and ask. And we need to invite them to our reserve and get everything moving. Right now we were stalled for a few years because we had to get a hold of our finances, but now we need to move forward with that ECDEV, and ECDEV's going to be a bigger part of our stuff moving forward. And I believe wholeheartedly we need more meetings, whether it's 3 or 4 a year, AGM and a couple of general meetings, just so the information flow isn't so much at the annual general meeting. It's mind-boggling, too much to do that. And we need better communication, because a lot of members don't know what we decide. And I don't know why that is. If we make a decision, the members should know about it and why we made that decision. That communication isn't going from council to members, and that needs to be more transparent. Because we make a lot of decisions in council, and it's not being relayed to the members. And I really think that we need more communication there as well. Kilikasa.
Okay, closing remarks. Thank you for all coming out tonight to ask us these good questions. Bert and others. It's always fun to participate in the council members format. I've done it when I was 19. I first got in. I served 20 years straight, and then I went away for 15. And I worked in the government, Indian Northern Affairs Canada, and I think that gave me a bit more insight and knowledge on how to work with a band, understanding the programs, the finances of as a funding service officer, we were responsible for audits, First Nations audits. So we did, I did up to 14 to 18 audits a year on First Nations bands. So I learned a lot along the way, and before that, I was a commercial fisherman. Fished with one of the best fishermen on the coast, Greg Adams. I've been involved with the Fisheries Management Council and all fisheries issues. I've been lucky enough to get the fisheries portfolio. With the fisheries management process, it's like I said, 71 First Nations in BC have joined by give a BCR mandate for us to negotiate with DFO. It's really exciting time for us to sit along with DFO and come with an equal decision-making process, which is going to be finalized in the next month or so, ready for public view, for first district view. So it's an exciting time, and there's 9 people representing the province on this first Fraser Salmon Management Council, and there's only 4 of us who've been appointed to the negotiations team, and I represent Approach. This Approach is the West Coast, east side of Vancouver Island, which is us, and down further south and further north of the river. That's Approach bands. And the other 2 people in Approach put faith in me to sit on the negotiations team. So I've been involved with the negotiations with DFO, and the minister signed off on it and in support of it, and the Prime Minister as well. So it's an exciting time. So being involved with fisheries and being involved with Indian Northern Affairs Canada, I think has given me a good background to help the First Nation, and I enjoy working with the First Nation. I've been doing it for a lot of years in both avenues. Once with Band Council for the period of time that I'm working with the government. Now back here again. So it's one thing I did not mention earlier was the Guardian program, which is exciting. In March, there's going to be dollars available for the Guardian program. At one time, the Limkish Band had 11 Guardians on the water and in the valley. So those dollars are going to be available again in March. So we're right knocking at the door to get as many as we can. So with that, I'm looking for your support in December 8th for the election. Thank you very much.
I remember last time I got nominated, I ran into Chris Cook outside the office. They were Jamie works when they take the nominations, and he asked me if I was going to stand, and I said, yes, I will, Chris, I said. And he says, well, that's really good. He said, we need somebody to represent the fishermen and have a good, big, loud voice. So when I got elected back in after a year off, our council was in the process of demolishing the wharf we have down there. And I talked about it long enough and loud enough to stop that process after the hydrant was cut off. And we have to put more energy into getting that thing rebuilt, because that's the last vestige of our identity as an ocean-going people. And you know, the pride that we took in being able to catch all this fish. And there's one thing I mentioned at the potlatch, the Cranmer potlatch. When Roy Cranmer went down with that stroke, the food fish in this community dried up. Now we have to depend on the council to get fish. So we're still an ocean-going people, limited as it is, and we have to do that. But you know, traveling with Victor and learning a lot from his experiences of the past makes me realize that DFO and all forms of government have set up all kinds of different decision-making entities that directly impact us, and we don't have any representation out there. And I think there was 5 of us that went to a meeting in Nanaimo with Fraser River people. And one of the biggest leaders up there, Ken Malloway, made a statement that really hit home. He said, if you're not sitting at the table when a plan is being made, you're going to be planned right out of a plan. You're not going to have a voice. So I'd like to, you know, be the voice of the Lumpies, because I've been involved in politics since I was 16. I was the secretary-treasurer of the Native Brotherhood. This was the biggest brotherhood community on the coast. We had 450 members living in Alert Bay. Well, those people don't have jobs anymore. And then we go to reconciliation. I really don't like that word reconciliation, because it's never ever been before the Supreme Court of Canada. And if you look it up, reconciliation means to right a wrong or to bring it back to the way it used to be. And none of that's happening. They just use that as a word to get around consultation and accommodation. If they go by the Haida Taku, they're going to be responsible for accommodating us. But reconciliation doesn't refer to that. There's nothing in the courts that talks to reconciliation. That came with the residential school apology about what happened. And to now have it included in the treaty talks, it shuns their duty to accommodate us once they've infringed on our title and rights, and all the incremental clawing away of our rights that's being done by the bureaucracies out there. And you know, all these other boards that are out there, they speak on our behalf, and we need to get together. I'd like to reform that 5-man fishery portfolio, because it's just too many meetings to go to for 2 people. And it's really important that our voices be heard and that we all speak with as one. And as soon as that 5 board members got disbanded and Victor and I took over, the strategy we were putting together on how to approach the DFO stopped. We don't have those meetings anymore. So we have to start getting our plan together, because we have a lot of plans. We've got to put them all together to make it fit today. So that's my goal. If I get back in, I'd like to stay on fishery and and, you know, help everybody that needs to come and join us, because, you know, don't put me on finance because I don't know anything about that. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes this all candidates meeting. Thank you all for coming and for watching, our candidates. Thank you. Make sure everybody goes out and votes, share what we've learned today.